We've talked about this Jeffrey Epstein stuff and the stuff that you don't know. And again, we did the big expose right after Epstein did or did not kill himself, whatever the speculation may be. And there were a lot of things that I didn't know at that point in time. And I'm, again, constantly learning, because this is an ongoing, in my opinion, it should be an ongoing investigation of trying to figure out this mysterious dark world that shrouded Jeffrey Epstein and so many things we don't know. So I've been watching these guys' videos here, and pretty intriguing stuff when you consider the fact that there are people out there who are uncovering some stuff. And so I want to welcome to the show DJ Bolger and Carter Andrews. Guys, welcome to the show. How you guys doing? Y'all are in Nashville, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
good,
sir.
Chad. How are you doing?
Thank you for having us.
We're doing good. We just played a clip earlier this week, DJ, of some comments that you had talking about the unveiling of the new, or earlier in this show, I should say, of the unveiling of that Ghislaine Maxwell painting.
Creepy.
That is pretty creepy. You couldn't take a bath, couldn't take a shower, couldn't get in the pool without being stared at by Ghislaine's naked body, which I mean is forever etched in my memory at this point.
Sorry about that.
Tell me. Let's go back to the beginning, DJ. I want you to start. Tell me, how did you guys get involved in just exploring any of this stuff in relation to Jeffrey Epstein? Tell me the backstory.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of stories go untouched. I mean, as most people know, our news is very much so corrupt, and in the current climate of the news world, they don't cover a lot of stories. And that was one of the big ones that we saw was Epstein kind of got, it kind of hit mainstream news, but only certain parts of the story hit mainstream news. And one of the very overlooked aspects of his story was his ranch. And that's kind of our YouTube channel, is to try to cover some of the things that didn't make it to mainstream news. And this was one of them, and it was very interesting. We found a lot of very interesting details about Epstein himself, the ranch, and those that were involved. So all those kind of factors combined into making a documentary.
So, and as you refer to the ranch, of course, you're talking about the Zorro Ranch, which is in New Mexico. And a lot of people know about Epstein's Island. They don't know, many folks, that he had a ranch in New Mexico. It was very much shrouded in secrecy in terms of how it was funded, what went on there. It was surrounded by some of New Mexico's politically elite. It was an interesting way to even get into the thing, which was unique. Carter, how did you guys... tell me the story. Like, how did you guys find this thing? What were your intentions towards this ranch? What happened?
Oh, well, okay. So I think the main question that we wanted answered, at least in the beginning, was, everyone knows about the island, all these other properties he had in New York, and they've all been raided by police, by law enforcement, because, he's a massive sex criminal. Mm-hmm. For some reason, though, we couldn't find, I was digging into this, doing research, couldn't find any reports that his New Mexico property had been entered by police at all. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a red flag, kind of strange. We called the FBI so many times. Just what was like 2 weeks of just straight everyday calling the FBI, because we wanted to know, has law enforcement even entered this New Mexico property? I mean, it seems like police should enter all of his properties. He's a massive sex criminal with who knows how many politicians and celebrities have been involved. And there's a house that he owned still sitting untouched by law enforcement. That seems crazy to me. What's in there? Have they seized any assets? I mean, there's so many questions unanswered.
So when you guys went in there, I mean, was it your intention to buy the property, just explore the property? I mean, where was the end game here?
Yeah, well, we tried to buy the property, really. I mean, we were trying to get a tour inside the property and kind of get some inside footage of what happened there. Because, I mean, it'd be nice to see that painting in person. Well, or not nice, really. But to, just bring the details to light, so to speak, if that's, you know what I mean? So, and then, I mean, like he said, it's, the FBI never raided it that we know of. That's interesting. So... And the house was very much so part of his operation, a very specific part of his operation. So
and so many celebrities and politicians went there as well. So just seems like a massive point of contention for this story, and nobody's talking about it. Very strange.
One of the things that we uncovered, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that it seemed like this property is literally insulated by other ranches, most of which is owned by some political elite in New Mexico. Sort of like, if you would, the Kennedys of New Mexico. I mean, these people have been governors and all these other things, and it's almost like the donut hole in the middle of the donut. This thing is, you don't just. Did you guys have problems or any difficulty accessing this property?
Yeah, well, so every single, I think his ranch total is what? 33,000 acres. Wow. And then every single, all the property surrounding it is owned by the King family, which is the kind of, the oligarchs of New Mexico, have been in politics forever. So it's all completely blocked off. And there's been like tons of news reports of people getting arrested because they're looking at maps saying like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to walk this trail or whatever, and then people will drive up in trucks, with guns, saying like, "Hey, this is private property, get off." And they're like, "No, I'm on." The map says this is public property. So it's so strange how like the rules regarding the property, and then some of it was owned by. Epstein had an agreement with the New Mexico government. Actually, had like leased a lot of that land with the New Mexico government, which I think it was 2019, right? That they cut that agreement off finally. But even still, it's very strange, the property surrounding it, and it was definitely done on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that, I mean, Sarah, we've talked to many times about this deal, about why aren't the client list being revealed, who actually went to Epstein's Island, who actually went to, like, it's kind of easy. You can see a flight log. You can see who went to the island. Guys, is there a way to know who went to the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico?
Well, that was part of what we want to find out. And so we actually contacted a former employee who was able to speak to us anonymously. But thankfully so. I mean, he told us names that we never even heard, like John Travolta that was there. Pretty interesting. Names like the Clintons are, rather obvious at this point, which is kind of sad to say the state of our nation, you know what I mean? That we're not even surprised that one of the biggest politicians in history is, at a baby making ranch and, with a convicted pedophile. But, yeah, a lot of the names, so to speak, with the surrounding this are deep, and some of them are right, some of them are left, some of them are foreign, like the prince in Prince Andrew. So yeah, man, it runs deep, and there's certainly more questions than answers involving this whole thing, and we would like to see more information on it as well. The calendar came out too. You didn't mention that. That's interesting. It implicates people like the director of the CIA. So hopefully, what's going on in the Virgin Islands right now can provide some more answers going forward.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because in the next segment, I want to kind of go in the house a little bit and ask some questions in regards to what's there. But you talk about the director of the CIA. I mean, here was a guy who, after Epstein was convicted, was still meeting with Epstein, and basically his excuse was, "I didn't know. I mean, he's a financial guy. Why wouldn't I, go check this thing out?"
The director of the CIA didn't know. Come on.
Actually, I might believe that these days, but
I mean, they really want us to. They expect us to be completely stupid at this point. I know that I go out and do live shows every now and then in certain towns in New Mexico, and I've been there enough to say I don't go to New Mexico without a purpose. There's nothing there for me just to go to hang out. I'm not. If I'm going to go snow skiing, it's probably not going to be in New Mexico. I know a lot of people do that. People go to Angel Fire, they go to Ruidoso, they go to these places that are kind of tourist areas. I could find another place. I just know that if I am that high up in political circles or celebrity circles or whatever, New Mexico is just not going to be the spot I'm going unless there's a real reason for me to go through the trouble to fly into the middle of this donut hole and get lost in the middle of 30,000 acres to hang out with a guy that, he wasn't a scientist, but they treated him like he was. I mean, they named a lab after him in Harvard, and this guy's getting Bill Gates money, and these guys are hobnobbing with this guy. The mystery of all that stuff's insane.
Yeah, he had a lot of, like you mentioned the science thing. He was deep in bed with the science community. Yeah. Knew all those guys, was meeting with all those guys all the time. for very strange, like he would have, huge scientific parties at his various, properties, for no real reason other than, I mean, I don't know, some of the things he would talk about, like eugenics, and, this kind of, he wanted to impregnate hundreds of women at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so strange. And it all that stuff kind of leads back to this New Mexico property.
Yeah.
And you're right. Why are these massive politicians, massive celebrities going to New Mexico out in the middle of nowhere, to do what? Talk with Epstein about? I don't know. There's so many questions.
Can we not take a meeting in Manhattan? I mean, can we? It's like, there's easier
beach,
places
maybe?
to go.
Yeah,
I mean, it's insane.